Her secret career as a professional scammer targeted my own aging parents. It still makes my stomach churn, a cold, hard knot that tightens every time I close my eyes. You know, before all this blew up, before I found out what she was really doing, I used to think we had something real, something solid. I'd lie awake sometimes, listening to her breathe next to me and just feel this overwhelming sense of peace, like I'd finally found my place. That's why, if you're finding yourself drawn into this story, if it's hitting you in a way that makes you want to know more, please, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like if it's resonating with you at all. And definitely share it with anyone you think needs to hear this. Leave a comment below too. I read them all. It helps knowing I'm not the only one who's been through something like this. Her name was Sarah Jenkins. At least that's the name I knew her by. We met at a coffee shop in that little town outside of Chicago, the one with the ridiculously overpriced lattes and the bookstore that smelled like old paper and possibility. I was there for a work conference, just passing through, and she was just there, working on her laptop, a half-finished croissant on a plate beside her, looking like she'd walked straight out of a movie scene. Dark, wavy hair, eyes that could hold your gaze for a beat too long, and a smile that could melt glaciers. I was instantly gone. We talked for hours that day, about everything and nothing. Books, travel, dreams. She was witty, sharp, and had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. It was intoxicating. We ended up seeing each other every night I was in town. Long walks, late-night diners, the kind of conversations that peel back layers you didn't even know you had. When the conference ended, I couldn't stand the thought of leaving her behind. So I asked her to come with me, back to my place in Denver. I was a software engineer, comfortable, steady, had a good life, a nice apartment overlooking the city lights, a solid group of friends. But something was missing, and I thought, just maybe, Sarah was it. She agreed, packed a few bags, sold some furniture she claimed was old junk anyway, and moved in with me. It was fast, I know. Everyone said it was fast. My sister, Emily, she was pretty vocal about it. "You barely know this woman, Dave," she'd say, her voice laced with that familiar concern that always felt a little like judgment. But I was in love, blindly, utterly in love. Sarah fit into my life like she'd always been there. She was supportive of my work, encouraging. She'd cook these amazing dinners, light candles, play soft music. She'd talk about her past vaguely, a difficult upbringing, some bad relationships she'd escaped. Nothing that felt too heavy, just enough to make you feel protective. She also had this incredible knack for making connections. She'd charm my neighbors, strike up conversations with the barista at our local coffee shop, even managed to get my grumpy old landlord to smile. She said she was trying to get a small online boutique off the ground, selling vintage clothes. She'd spend hours online, talking about sourcing fabrics, marketing, the usual entrepreneurial jargon. I'd see her hunched over her laptop, her brow furrowed in concentration, and I'd just smile. She was driven, passionate. It was all so normal, so incredibly, beautifully normal. The first tiny crack, so small I almost dismissed it, was about money. She never asked for much, never seemed to need anything. But there were times, usually around the end of the month, when things felt a little tight for her. She'd sigh, look out the window, and say something like, "Oh, it's just this one order that's delayed. You know how it is with small businesses." I'd offer to help, of course. No, Dave, I've got it. Just a temporary cash flow thing." And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Then came the calls. Her phone would ring, and she'd step away, always to another room or outside on the balcony. Her voice would drop, become hushed, urgent. She'd have this intense look on her face, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Fear? Excitement? I'd ask who it was, and she'd just wave a dismissive hand. "Oh, just a supplier," or "a customer with a weird issue." It was odd, but I chalked it up to the stresses of running a business. Maybe her suppliers were demanding, or her customers were difficult. I was busy with my own job, the deadlines, the pressure. I didn't pry. I trusted her. God, I trusted her. The real shift, the seismic tremor that started to crack the foundation of everything, began with my parents. They lived in Arizona. My dad had been retired for years. My mom worked part-time at a local library.
They were getting older. Their health wasn't what it used to be. I called them every Sunday. Standard procedure. They were my rock, my anchor, and they adored Sarah. I'd brought her out to visit them a few months after she moved in. She'd charmed them, of course. My mom, who was notoriously hard to impress, couldn't stop raving about her. "She's just so sweet, David," she'd say, "and so good to you. You're a lucky boy." Sarah started calling them more often, not just when I was around, but on her own. She'd say she was just checking in, making sure they were okay. She'd send them little gifts, a scarf for my mom, a book for my dad. It seemed thoughtful, generous even, and it made me feel good. It showed her, I thought, how much she cared about my family, about my life. The first mention of money from my parents came subtly. My mom called me one Tuesday afternoon, her voice a little strained. "David, honey, is everything all right with you and Sarah? She mentioned something about needing a little unexpected expense. Is she having trouble with her business?" I was confused.
"No, Mom, not that I know of. She's been fine." My mom hesitated. "Oh, well, she said she needed to cover some immediate costs, and I helped her out a little. Just a few $100s. I hope that's okay." A few $100s. It wasn't a lot, not for my parents, who were financially stable, but it was odd. Sarah had never mentioned needing money, and why would she ask my parents before me? I confronted her later that night. She blushed, looked down at her hands. "Oh, Dave, it's just that supplier, they were really pushing for this early payment, and I didn't want to bother you with it. It's a small thing, really. Your mom is so generous." She smiled, that disarming smile, and I let it go. I told myself it was a minor thing, an overstep by my mom maybe. Sarah was just trying to be independent. But it kept happening. Not always with money. Sometimes it was about investment opportunities. Sarah would call my parents, talking about some exclusive opportunities she'd come across. "It's a limited time thing, Mrs. Henderson," I'd overhear her saying on a call, her voice dripping with manufactured urgency and excitement. "The returns are incredible. I've put a little in myself." My dad, who was always a bit of a tinkerer with his finances, got drawn in. He'd call me asking questions about things I'd never heard of. "David, Sarah was telling me about this tech startup. Sounds like it's going to be huge. Should I consider moving some of my stocks around?" I started to feel a prickle of unease, a cold dread that started to creep into the edges of my mind. It wasn't just Sarah being independent. It felt like something else. I started paying closer attention. I'd look at her laptop screen when she wasn't looking. I'd listen more intently to her hushed phone calls. The language she used, client, account, transfer, verification. It started to sound less like boutique sales and more like something else entirely. One evening, I was working late at my office. I'd forgotten some important files at home. I decided to swing by. The apartment was quiet. Sarah wasn't there. I let myself in, looking for the files. As I walked past her desk, I saw her laptop was still open. A window was up, not her usual vintage clothing site, but a complex spreadsheet. Names, numbers, dates. And then I saw it. A name I recognized, my dad's name. Beside it, a large sum of money. And then another name, my Aunt Carol's name, and another sum, and my Uncle Robert's. It was a list of my family members, and with each name, a corresponding dollar amount. My blood ran cold. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a business expense. This wasn't an investment opportunity. This looked like she was extracting money from them, and the amounts were significant, far more than a few $100s. I stumbled back, my hands shaking. I closed the laptop, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird.
That night, Sarah came home, all smiles and perfume. She'd apparently been meeting with a potential supplier. I couldn't even look at her. I pretended to be tired, feigning sleep as she got ready for bed, but my mind was racing. I was piecing things together. The hushed calls, the vague explanations, the sudden interest in my parents' financial well-being. It all clicked into place with a sickening, horrifying certainty. The next morning, I waited until Sarah left for her morning coffee run. I went straight to her desk. I opened her laptop again, my hands trembling, and navigated to her browser history. It was a rabbit hole. Scams, elder fraud, how to impersonate a trusted advisor, creating convincing fake investment platforms, best practices for social engineering elderly victims. Every search term was a knife twisting in my gut. It wasn't a business. It was a con. and she was targeting my family. My aging parents, who had opened their hearts and their wallets to this woman, who had welcomed her into our family with open arms. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Guilt. Roaring, unadulterated guilt. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed all the signs? She had played me. She had played all of us. My love for her, my trust, it had all been a carefully constructed illusion, a pawn in her game. I sat there, in the quiet of our apartment, surrounded by the life we had built, and felt utterly and completely broken. The woman I loved, the woman I was planning a future with, was a predator, and her next targets were the two people who meant the world to me, my parents. The clock was ticking. I had to do something, but what and how? The sheer terrifying scope of what she was doing and the depth of her betrayal left me paralyzed. I knew with a chilling certainty that this was just the beginning of the nightmare, and I didn't know how I was going to survive it. The cold dread that had been a subtle hum in my gut for weeks now roared into a deafening siren. My parents, my sweet, trusting parents. The thought of Sarah, with her practiced smiles and her carefully crafted words whispering poison into their ears, planting seeds of financial ruin, made me physically ill. I felt a primal urge to run, to scream, to shatter something, anything, to break the suffocating grip of this reality. But I was frozen, paralyzed by the sheer gut-wrenching horror of it all. It wasn't just that she was a scammer, it was who she was scamming. My family. The people who had given me everything, who had welcomed her with open arms, who had trusted me to choose someone good for them. And I had failed, spectacularly, terribly. I spent the next few hours in a daze, pacing the apartment like a caged animal. Every sound, every creak of the floorboards sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I checked her phone, her purse, anything that might offer more clues, more proof. Her phone was locked, and I wasn't about to try and crack it, not yet.
But in her purse, tucked into a side pocket, I found a small, discreet notebook, spiral-bound with a faux leather cover. My heart pounded as I opened it. It wasn't a diary, not a journal. It was a ledger. Dates, initials, amounts. And the initials? They were unsettlingly familiar. DM for my dad, David Miller. AM for my mom, Anna Miller. Beside them, figures that made my stomach clench tighter, far more than the few $100s my mom had mentioned. Thousands, tens of thousands. And it wasn't just my parents. There were other initials, ones I didn't immediately recognize, but the pattern was undeniable. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. This was a meticulously planned, ongoing operation. She was systematically bleeding them dry. The sheer audacity, the calculated cruelty of it all sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. How could someone so normal, so seemingly loving, be capable of this? Every shared laugh, every tender touch, every intimate moment we'd had now felt like a cruel, elaborate charade. Was any of it real? Did she ever feel anything for me? Or was I just a convenient tool, a key to unlock access to my unsuspecting family? The questions gnawed at me, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. I remembered her talking about her difficult past, her bad relationships. Was that all just part of the act, a fabricated backstory designed to elicit sympathy and trust? By the time Sarah returned, a faint scent of coffee and manufactured cheerfulness clinging to her, I had made a decision. It was a desperate, terrifying decision, but I felt I had no other choice. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. Not without proof. Without a plan. I had to be smart. I had to play her game, at least for a little while longer. I forced myself to plaster a smile on my face, to greet her with the same easy affection I'd shown her just days before. "Hey you," she said, her voice light and bubbly. She dropped her keys on the counter and leaned in to kiss me. I endured it, my body stiff, my mind racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. "You seem quiet," she observed, her brow furrowing slightly. "Just tired," I lied, pulling away from her touch. "Long day at work, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of the code. It's a beast." She nodded, accepting it readily enough. "I get it.
You work so hard, Dave. You deserve a break. She walked into the living room, her movements fluid and graceful, and flopped onto the sofa. Guess what? I had a breakthrough with that supplier I was telling you about. They're going to give me a really good deal on a bulk order. I just need to finalize a few things with them. Finalize a few things. I knew what that meant. It meant another call, another manufactured crisis, another opportunity to extract more money from my parents. I swallowed the bile that rose in my throat. That's great, Sarah, I managed, my voice feeling strained and unnatural. Really great. That night, sleep eluded me.
I lay in bed, listening to her even breathing beside me, and the silence was deafening. It was a silence filled with all the things she'd hidden, all the lies she'd spun. I felt a profound sense of isolation, a chilling loneliness that had nothing to do with being physically alone. I was sharing a bed, a life, with a stranger, a wolf in sheep's clothing. The peace I had once felt in her presence was replaced by a gnawing anxiety, a constant state of hypervigilance. Every subtle shift in her breathing, every sigh, felt loaded with hidden meaning. The next few days were a carefully choreographed dance of deception. I went to work, I came home, I played the part of the oblivious boyfriend. But behind the facade, I was a detective, meticulously gathering evidence. I learned how to discreetly check her online banking history when she was in the shower. I found multiple accounts, all with different names, none of them Sarah Jenkins. Names that matched the initials in her notebook: Alex Miller, Samantha Davies, Michael Peterson. Each account was a testament to her cunning, her ability to create and maintain multiple personas. I found records of large transfers to offshore accounts, to prepaid debit cards. It was a sophisticated operation, far beyond what I had initially imagined. She wasn't just a scammer, she was a professional, a master of manipulation. I started subtly probing my parents, trying to gauge the extent of the damage without revealing what I knew. Mom, Dad, how are things going? Everything okay financially? I'd ask during our Sunday calls, my voice carefully casual. My mom would always be a little evasive. Oh, you know, David, just managing. Sarah's been so wonderful helping us with some of our investments. You should really talk to her about it. She's got such a knack for these things. Investments, my dad would chime in, his voice laced with a pride that now felt like a punch to the gut. Sarah's been teaching us about some really promising opportunities. She's got a real handle on the market, son. She's looking out for us. Looking out for them. She was looking out for her own bottom line. That's what she was doing. I'd picture her, sitting across from them, her eyes wide and earnest, spitting tales of guaranteed returns, of exclusive access. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, and I was powerless to stop it. One evening, Sarah announced she had to go out, a last-minute meeting with a potential investor who was flying in from out of town. She looked excited, dressed in a particularly sharp outfit, her makeup flawless. "Wish me luck," she said, kissing me lightly on the cheek. This could be huge for the business. As soon as the front door clicked shut behind her, I was on her laptop again. This time, I found something different, a folder labeled Client Profiles. My hands shook as I opened it. It wasn't just financial data, it was personal. Photographs, driver's licenses, social security numbers.
And the names? They were the same names from her online accounts. But there was more. Detailed notes about their lives, their habits, their fears, their vulnerabilities. It was like reading a dossier on each of her victims. And then I saw it. A profile for my dad. Not just his financial details, but his medical history, his recent hip surgery, his fear of becoming a burden, his love for vintage cars. Every intimate detail I'd ever shared with Sarah about my parents was here, twisted and weaponized. And then, the gut punch. Among the scanned documents for my dad, there was a photograph, a recent one. My dad, smiling, holding up a ridiculously oversized check. And standing beside him, beaming, was Sarah. Except she wasn't Sarah Jenkins. Her name on the check, in bold letters, Jennifer Stone. Jennifer Stone. Not Sarah Jenkins, not Alex Miller, not Samantha Davies. Jennifer Stone. the pieces slammed into place with a sickening finality. She wasn't just using different aliases, she was creating entirely new identities. This wasn't just about stealing money, it was about the thrill of the deception, the power of inhabiting multiple lives, of duping everyone around her. The image seared itself into my brain. My father, proud and duped, presenting a fake check to a woman who wasn't even the person I thought she was. The betrayal was no longer just about money. It was about identity, about the very essence of who she claimed to be. I felt a cold rage begin to simmer beneath the surface of my fear and confusion. She was a ghost, a phantom, weaving through lives, leaving devastation in her wake. And I had been the one to invite her in. I had vouched for her. I had loved her. I didn't know what to do with this information. Jennifer Stone. It was a name that meant nothing and everything all at once. It was the key to unlocking the entire charade, but it also meant the person I thought I knew, the person I had fallen in love with, had never existed at all. My mind reeled. How long had she been doing this? How many other lives had she inhabited? And how many other people had she hurt? The weight of it all was crushing. I looked at the laptop screen, at the smiling face of Jennifer Stone, my father's arm around her. I felt a desperate need to call my parents, to warn them, to scream at them to stop. But what would I say? Hey, Mom and Dad, the woman you've welcomed into our family, the one you adore, is actually a con artist with multiple identities who's been stealing from you for months. And by the way, her name isn't even Sarah Jenkins. They would never believe me. They would think I was crazy. They would defend her. And Sarah, or Jennifer, would know I was onto her. The delicate balance I had so carefully maintained would shatter, and who knew what desperate measures she would take then. I closed the laptop, my hands still trembling, but now with a fierce, cold determination.
The confusion and despair were still there, a heavy blanket suffocating me, but the rage was starting to feel like a lifeline. I needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof. I needed to expose her, not just to my parents, but to the world. I needed to make them see the monster I had unknowingly invited into our lives. Just then, I heard the faint sound of keys jingling in the lock. Sarah was back. I quickly straightened the laptop, my heart pounding. I had to be ready. I had to be convincing. I had to be the same oblivious boyfriend she had left. But as I stood there, the image of Jennifer Stone's smiling face, so close to my father's, burned into my mind. I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not a single more dollar, not a single more lie. But the path ahead felt treacherous, littered with potential pitfalls, and the terrifying unknown of what this woman was truly capable of. I felt a chill run down my spine, a premonition that this was only the beginning of a much darker, much more dangerous game, and I was already in way too deep. The apartment felt suffocatingly small, every shadow a lurking threat. Sarah walked in, a little too bright, a little too loud, like she always was when she just pulled off something significant. Her smile was a little too practiced, her eyes a little too assessing. She dropped her keys, the clatter echoing in the sudden, loaded silence. "Hey babe," she chirped, leaning in for a kiss I barely tolerated. Her perfume, usually a comfort, now felt like a gag. It was expensive, cloying, another carefully chosen prop in her performance. "Hey," I managed, my voice rougher than I intended. I pulled away, feigning exhaustion. "Long day." She shrugged, already heading for the kitchen, the practiced ease of her movements a stark contrast to the turmoil churning inside me. "You said, anything interesting happen?" I watched her pour a glass of water, her back to me. The image of Jennifer Stone beside my dad, her hand on his shoulder, flashed behind my eyes. It was like staring into an abyss. "Nah, same old." I walked into the living room, forcing myself to sit on the couch, to mimic normalcy. The notebook was still on the coffee table, a tangible piece of evidence, a damning indictment. I resisted the urge to snatch it up, to confront her, to scream the name Jennifer Stone until it echoed in the hollow spaces of this apartment. I couldn't. Not yet. Not without a plan. She came back in, settling beside me, her thigh brushing mine, a ghost touch. "You seem off," she murmured, her brow knitting into that familiar, concerned expression. It was so convincing, so perfect, it made me want to vomit. "Just thinking about work," I said, turning my gaze to the blank TV screen. "That new project, it's a nightmare to untangle." She patted my knee. "You'll figure it out. You always do. You're so smart, Dave."
She paused, a different kind of intensity entering her voice.
Speaking of smart, I had a really productive call earlier. That new client I was telling you about, the tech guy in Silicon Valley, he's really interested in partnering. We're talking serious expansion, Dave. My blood ran cold. A new client. Another Mark. Another unsuspecting soul to be bled dry. That's amazing, Sarah, I said, the words tasting like ash. What did he say? She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He's ready to commit, but he needs a little upfront investment. Just a small percentage to secure his stake. Nothing we can't handle. I was thinking maybe we could use some of the money we've been saving for the down payment on the house. It's a sure thing, Dave. This is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around twice. My breath hitched. The house. Our dream house. The one we'd spent hours browsing online, the one we'd picked out paint swatches for, the one she'd lovingly described us furnishing. It was all a lie. A calculated play to keep me invested, to keep me from pulling away. And the money, she wanted to use our savings. The money I'd worked so hard for, the money I'd envisioned as the foundation of our future. She was playing me, playing all of us, with an audacity that was both terrifying and, in a twisted way, almost impressive. I don't know, Sarah, I said, my voice deliberately hesitant. That's a lot of money, and we've been saving for the house for so long. She turned to me, her eyes wide, her smile a little strained now, revealing a flicker of the impatience beneath the polished surface. Dave, don't be silly. This is real money, the kind that makes more money. The house can wait. This can set us up for life. Just imagine, Dave. No more worrying about bills, no more working ourselves to the bone, just freedom. Freedom. It was her favorite word, her ultimate promise, a promise built on the ashes of other people's security. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I had to get out. I had to get away from her, from the suffocating closeness, from the cloying scent of her lies. I need some air, I stammered, standing up abruptly. I'm going for a walk. She looked surprised, then a little hurt. Now? It's getting dark. Just a quick one, I said, already moving towards the door, grabbing my jacket. I need to clear my head. The moment I was out on the street, the cool night air hit me like a slap. I walked, not really seeing where I was going, my mind a chaotic storm. I replayed every conversation, every shared moment, searching for the cracks, the inconsistencies I'd missed. The Jennifer Stone photo was burned into my memory, my dad, so proud, holding that oversized check. He'd always been a sucker for a good story, for someone who seemed to understand his dreams, his aspirations, and Sarah, or Jennifer, had been a master at playing to those aspirations. I found myself walking towards my parents' house. It was late, but I couldn't help it. I needed to see them, to touch them, to feel the grounding reality of their presence, a stark contrast to the phantom life Sarah, Jennifer, was weaving around them. I parked a block away, the familiar silhouette of their cozy suburban home a beacon in the darkness. I crept to the living room window, peering through the blinds. They were there. My mom was knitting, her brow furrowed in concentration. My dad was reading the newspaper, his reading glasses perched on his nose. They looked so peaceful, so content, and completely oblivious. The sight of them, so vulnerable, so trusting, sent a fresh surge of cold fury through me. They were my parents. They deserved better than this. They deserved honesty, respect, love, not exploitation, not betrayal. I wanted to kick down the door, to drag Sarah into their living room and force her to face them, to confess the magnitude of her deception. But I knew that would only lead to more chaos, more pain. They wouldn't understand. They'd be devastated. And Sarah, the chameleon, would likely charm her way out of it, spinning a new narrative, painting me as the villain, the jealous boyfriend. I retreated to my car, the engine a low hum in the quiet street. I couldn't save them tonight, but I could find out more. I had to arm myself with irrefutable proof. I had to unravel her entire web of deceit. I drove back to the apartment, my mind racing. I needed more than just the ledger and the photo.
I needed to understand the full scope of her operation. The next few days were a blur of Fern searches and staged normalcy. I learned to anticipate her movements, to create windows of opportunity. While she was at her meetings, I was busy. I dug deeper into her online banking, her cloud storage, anything I could access. I found more aliases, more shell companies, more meticulously crafted backstories. There were profiles for individuals who claimed to be real estate developers, aspiring artists, even a former charity director. Each one was a testament to her chameleon-like ability to adapt, to inhabit and exploit the vulnerabilities of others. And then I found it. Buried deep within a series of encrypted files, I discovered a log, not just of transactions, but of communications, emails, texts, voice memos. It was a treasure trove of her manipulative tactics. I listened to recordings of her phone calls to my parents. The saccharine sweetness, the feigned concern, the subtle pressure. She was a maestro of emotional manipulation. She preyed on their desire to feel useful, on their pride in their son's success, on their fear of being left behind. One particular recording sent a chill down my spine. It was from a few weeks ago, before I'd found the notebook. My mom was on the line, her voice tight with worry. "Sarah, honey, I'm worried about these market fluctuations. David mentioned something about a new algorithm that's supposed to be risky?"
Sarah's voice, dripping with reassurance, flowed through the small speaker. "Oh, Anna, please don't worry. Dave's just being overly cautious. This particular algorithm is very specialized, and I've been working closely with a team that's developed it. It's designed for high net worth individuals who understand the risks. Honestly, it's perfect for you and David. It's going to be a game changer. I've already put a significant portion of your savings into it. It's generating incredible returns already. You'll see." My mom's sigh was audible. "Oh, Sarah, you always know best. I trust you, and I trust David to have chosen well." That last line was the dagger. My parents trusted me to choose well, and I had brought them a viper. The guilt was a physical weight in my chest, crushing me. I'd been so eager to impress them, to show them I'd found someone special, that I'd blinded myself to the truth. Or worse, I hadn't looked hard enough. The confession was a slow, agonizing process. I started with my dad. I drove over to his place, the evidence a heavy burden in my briefcase. I sat him down in his favorite armchair, the one by the fireplace, the one where he used to read me stories. The air in the room was thick with the scent of old paper and pipe tobacco, a comforting, familiar smell that now felt like a fragile shield against the storm I was about to unleash. "Dad," I began, my voice trembling, "I need to tell you something I found out, and it's going to hurt." I laid out the ledger, the bank records, the photos. I explained about Jennifer Stone, about the multiple identities, the elaborate scams. I showed him the recordings of Sarah talking to my mom, the manipulative words she'd used. His face, usually ruddy and full of life, drained of color. His eyes, wide with disbelief, darted from the documents to my face, searching for an explanation, a denial that I couldn't give. When I showed him the photo of him with Jennifer Stone, holding the oversized check, his breath hitched. He stared at it, his lips moving silently, as if trying to reconcile the image with his memory. That day," he whispered, his voice hoarse, She looked so happy, so proud of me." His hand went to his chest, as if a physical pain had taken root there. "She's an actress, Dad," I said, my own voice cracking. "A master manipulator. She played you. She's been playing all of us." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a profound sadness, a bewildered grief. "But she seemed so genuine, so caring. She talked about the market, about investments. She made it sound so simple, so lucrative." "That was her job, Dad," I said, the words heavy with regret. "Her job was to make you trust her, to make you believe in her, and she was very, very good at it." The confession to my mom was even harder. She sat on the edge of the sofa, her knitting needles clutched in her hand, her face pale. When I showed her the recordings, she covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a sob. The sweet, loving woman who had always put her children first, who had poured her life into our family, was being systematically stripped of her security, her peace of mind, by someone I had brought into our lives. She said I was being overly cautious," my mom whispered,
tears welling in her eyes. She said this was a special algorithm for people like us. Her voice broke. Oh, David, I wanted to help you. I wanted to see you both get ahead. I wanted to feel like I was contributing. The guilt was a tidal wave, threatening to drown me. Mom, it's not your fault, I said, my voice thick with emotion. It's mine. I brought her into our lives. I trusted her. I didn't see it. I should have seen it. My dad came in then, putting an arm around my mom. He looked older, diminished. No, son, he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. This is on her. She's the one who did this. We'll get through this. Together. The confrontation with Sarah, Jennifer, was the final, brutal act. I waited until she came home, her usual bright smile already in place. The apartment felt charged, heavy with unspoken accusations. Hey, babe, she said, dropping her keys. Guess what? That tech guy from Silicon Valley, he's wired the funds. We're in. This is going to be huge. She turned to me, her eyes sparkling with triumph. See, I told you. Trust me. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. The notebook was in my hand. I dropped it on the coffee table, the pages splayed open. Her smile faltered. Her eyes flickered to the notebook, then back to me, a flicker of something cold and calculating, replacing the warmth. What is this? She asked, her voice losing its lilt, becoming harder, sharper. It's your ledger, Sarah, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. Or should I say, Jennifer Stone. Her jaw tightened. She didn't deny it. The mask was slipping. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think you do, I said, my gaze unwavering. I know about the aliases. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about the client profiles. And I know about my parents. I know you've been systematically bleeding them dry for months. Her eyes narrowed, the practiced charm completely gone, replaced by something predatory. You've been snooping, she hissed. I had to, I said, the words a raw confession. I had to know. And I found out. I found out that the woman I loved, the woman I thought I was building a life with, is a con artist, a master of deceit. She laughed then, a short, sharp, humorless sound. And you're the wronged innocent, the victim? Please, you're as greedy as the rest of them. You just didn't get your cut. That's when the rage truly ignited. The carefully constructed calm shattered. Get out, I said, my voice a low growl. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life.
She took a step back, a flicker of something that might have been fear in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. You think you can just kick me out after everything? Everything you've stolen, I spat. Everything you've lied about. Get out now, or I'm calling the police, and I have enough proof to send you away for a very long time. She stared at me, her face a mask of cold fury. The illusion of love, of partnership, was utterly shattered. All that remained was the hard shell of a woman who had played me and everyone else for a fool. After a long, tense moment, she turned, her movements sharp and jerky. She grabbed her purse, her keys, her expensive perfume bottle. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't look back. The door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the sudden, profound silence. I stood there for a long time, the echo of the door slamming reverberating in the emptiness. The apartment felt vast, alien. The life we had shared, the future we had planned, all reduced to dust and ashes. The emotional fallout was immense. Guilt, betrayal, anger, confusion, a profound sense of loss. But beneath it all, a fragile sense of relief. The charade was over. The truth, however devastating, was finally out. I walked over to the window, looking out at the city lights, each one a tiny spark in the vast darkness. The journey ahead would be long and painful. Rebuilding trust with my parents, dealing with the financial fallout, picking up the pieces of my own shattered reality.
But for the first time in weeks, I felt a sliver of peace. The air in the apartment, though still heavy with the ghost of her presence, felt a little cleaner, a little lighter, like I could finally breathe.